Have you ever heard something that is so good it just stays in your memory? It could be a lyric to a song, or a wise saying, or a funny quote or something. It's just so timeless and true. It's like a stake in the ground anchoring you throughout life. There are lots of different contexts that we hear these things, and I'm sure, I hope, at least some of these come to your mind. A few that came to my mind as I was preparing this sermon were things like, haste makes waste, right? One of Aesop's fables. Kind of should live your life by that, especially in a hurried world. I before E, except after C. I ain't very good at English, so I use that one from time to time. The great Yogi Berra, I think, statesman and philosopher of his time, said, "It ain't over till it's over." Right? That's kind of a good one. Here's one. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Right? John F. Kennedy said that. Some biblical lyrics and words stick with us. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Right? Brings peace to our souls. To a lot of people, Psalm 91, the entire psalm, or just the first couple of verses, we see it there in the frame, it is one of those things. It's beautiful, it's poetic, and it's very, very poignant for a lot of people who have a lot of different needs. Soldiers will quote it when they're in the heat of battle. Countless individuals will turn to it and find comfort in difficult situations. Even Satan, the devil himself, knew it and quoted it to Jesus and tried to tempt him with it when Jesus was being tempted in the desert. It's pretty interesting. We've been studying Psalm 91 the past couple of weeks at River's Edge Church, and we're going to continue studying it today. And may it have for us that kind of timeless value as we continue in it the next couple of weeks. Today specifically, we're going to look at verse 4. So the whole psalm says a lot and illustrates a lot, has a lot of word pictures about what God is like and how we are to be in response. Verse 4 is, I think, the crown jewel of the illustrations in this psalm. So today, let's read Psalm 91, verses 1 through 4. You can read it in the Bibles in front of you. I think it's going to be there on the screen as well. So let's read Psalm 91, verses 1 through 4. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. So in verse 4, indeed the entire psalm, it tells us a few things that God is like. And then it reveals what we are to be like in response. So first, looking at verse 4, what is God like here? The first thing that I see is that God is like a comforting, covering, protecting mother. We often hear about God in a man's pronouns and those kinds of ways, but here it's so incredible that God is our motherly source of comfort. The feathers and the wings illustrate this. In verse 4 it says, He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. So God is a covering. Verse 4 says that. He covers us from the storms of life, from other things that may come upon us from the outside, just like a mother hen covers her young with her wings. That's what God is like. God is comforting. And I think the illustration here of the feathers is like that. I'm not sure how a mother porcupine covers her young. That would be a little uncomfortable, but a mother hen, a bird, covering its young with its feathers. And it says that in verse 4. He will cover you with his feathers. There's a kind of comfort in that, and there's a peace and a resting, a safe place right there that we can be. And God is like that. It also says in verse 4 that through covering us, he will provide safety and refuge. It says, he will cover you with his feathers, verse 4, and under his wings you will find refuge, protection, and strength. So the first part of verse 4, it shows that God is like a comforting and covering mother, protecting its young with its wings. It also says in the second part of verse 4 that God is like a strong, victorious warrior. There is where we see some of the more masculine attributes. It says in verse 4, his faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. The word shield comes right out of battle. It's the same exact word as what used in conflict, things that protect the soldiers from the assaults of the enemy. And those soldiers are protected and are safe and are victorious. And the word rampart, here in the King James Version, it's the word buckler. I'm not at all sure what those words mean in English, but when looking into what this word originally means, it comes from the word surrounding. So God is like a victorious warrior surrounding. So in the battle, we see that in like a fortified fortress, like a thickly surrounded walls protecting the battalion. That's what rampart means, a surrounding. So God is like a comforting, covering, protecting mother. And God is like a strong, victorious, shielding, and surrounding warrior. How incredible. God's not just one way. God is every way and everything for us when we are in need. So that illustrates, they're word pictures right out of the Psalm. So beautiful, what God is like. What is sort of hidden in here or implied in these things, and indeed the entire Psalm, is what we are to be like then. So, knowing that God is like this, what are we to be like in response? Well, we are not just to temporarily seek refuge, temporarily be covered, or temporarily be shielded, only when in need, but we actually have to live there. We have to live there. In preparing for this sermon, I was thinking of my daughter Rachel and talking with my wife about what she used to be like. You know, she was when she was smaller, we could hold her and sort of tuck her right in her elbow and cuddle with her and kiss her and snuggle her, and she would look up and just be totally content being there. She didn't want to be anywhere else. Now she's a year and a half, rambunctious toddler. Valerie and I have a term of endearment for her. We call her the squirm ball, because at times when we need to pick her up and when we need to hold her and when we need for her to be with us, she kind of squirms around, wants to be out and makes it, she'll like sort of rev her legs up and like almost try to jump out the other side, so she's our squirm ball. Don't get me wrong, there are times when she comes to us and seeks our comfort and our refuge and our shelter. She'll maybe stand and pull at our legs, and she'll say, pick up! Do you get the message? Pick me up! And even sometimes when she says that, and we pick her up, she instantly starts squirming around and wanting to get back down again. So she does come to us, but she doesn't, she's just not content now just staying with us, She wants to be free and independent and do her own thing. I don't think that we are to be like that with God. I think that if we go to God and seek comfort from Him and seek shelter and refuge from Him, we shouldn't be that squirm ball, We need to live there. We really need to live there our entire lives. There's a word in verse 4 that also illustrates this. And so I want to share with you some context about it. Verse 4 says, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." So this word refuge here is probably illustrating an assailant coming unjustly, and we seek refuge in that way. But just the idea of refuge in general, especially in ancient Israel, which is the greater context of this psalm, is really, really telling to us. So in ancient Israel, innocent human life was held in high regard. And the Israelite law that God instituted for his people was that if somebody took a life, they would be killed in return for their murder. Now, God set up and understood the situations that can come around. And so he set up these things called cities of refuge. A few cities all over Israel and beyond that someone could run to if they unintentionally committed a murder. If they were in the fields and there was an accident and another life was unintentionally taken and they were in charge and they were responsible for it. That person could flee to a city of refuge and be protected and kept safe from the avenger taking their life. So the thing about these cities of refuge is that someone couldn't just go there and hang out for a little while, wait until the situation was forgotten about and until the storm blew over and then leave. No, it was stated that they had to live there. In fact, it was such that as God instituted these cities of refuges and these stipulations for the protection of life, if that person was found outside of the city of refuge, they could be rightfully put to death. They had to flee, and live in that city of refuge. And I think that that's really significant for us. We can't just flee to God and hide under his wings and duck behind his shield and then see if everything's all right and go back our own way. No. We need to go to him. We need to live there.